What up, home slices, home fries, and homes of other varieties? Did y'all hear the big news? Where Matt Rife and Elton Castee bought the Warren Home and Museum? Because I did.
This is it. I don't know how. Welcome to Ed and Lorraine Warren's house and museum. Yeah, this is insane. Matt was here with me last week. We got to stop here together and he got to see it. Couldn't be here tonight, but he has been here. He's seen everything that's inside. Yes, everything is inside. So this is nuts. And I want to say this just right now so everyone 1000% knows and nothing can get misconstrued. Matt and I have purchased Ed and Lorraine's house, which is what this property is. It includes the museum, because the museum is a building that is attached to the house. As far as the items go, Tony and Judy still own all of the artifacts. It is theirs. They have not sold them. Do not let that get misconstrued. They have not sold them. But Matt and I are, let's call it the legal guardians of all of the artifacts, including Annabelle, for the next 5 years at least. So just so everyone knows that as well. So it is still theirs, but it just felt like the right way to do this all. We're opposed to buying the house and removing them. So we own the house. We will be opening this house up for paranormal investigations. The items will be staying in the museum. And for those of you that do end up staying here for an overnight investigation, you will be allowed as well to investigate in the museum, but under guidance. I cannot, again, this is the guy that screws around a lot on videos. This is the one place I don't. This is the one place that I don't. I have my reasons for it. You get what I'm saying. So that's the truth of it all. Please just know that. I don't want anything to get misconstrued. And again, for those of you that were maybe like, why was he saying he started this 4 months ago? Something happened a few weeks ago. I'll wait to talk about it till later. That we'll talk about it later. So, with all that being said, yeah, this is the location.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that Zach Bagel Bites didn't body slam them for a chance to buy the Warren house, because we all know that he was eyeing up that museum. So the fact that they beat him to it honestly makes me kind of happy. Sorry, Zach Bagel Bites. Now, from the content that I've watched from Elton on the Overnight channel, I know that they're going to take this seriously, which is great. But there's some things that they're missing. I know that they're going to cleanse the place after every investigation, but there's some things that need to be added to this. This video is to point out additional risk factors and or threats that they should be aware of, and in my opinion, what I think should be done. Now, I am a psychic medium who specializes in the paranormal, so I do this for a living. I've had over 100 cases from around the world, and I take this job seriously, okay? And so I want to just make sure that we cover all the bases here. Currently, in the paranormal and spiritual communities, I've noticed that so many people are covering this situation, and a lot of them are a bit fear-mongery, okay? I understand with the passing of Dan Rivera, like, it is a little bit alarming, but there's a lot of variables that go into this, some of which are not paranormal related. And if you want me to cover that situation, please let me know down below. Right now, I'm giving it a lot of time because it's still fresh for the family, and it would be in poor taste if I was like, this is what happened, like, right after it happened. So, you know, we're just giving people some time. But there's a lot of stuff that has gone into this situation that I do eventually want to cover. I did a pre-channel to see the biggest threats and to see if they missed anything, things along those lines. I know the Warren Museum has over 700 and change. I want to say 750, maybe 760 occult items there. Do I believe every single item there is haunted? That question is very tricky, and I'll get into that, but this is what I'll say. I think originally, not every single item was haunted, but because they've been sitting together for years and years, the ones that weren't originally were haunted, I think they are now haunted because they're sharing the space, they're sharing the energy. But I think there were quite a few that were very, I would say, they fit the aesthetic and they liked it. And when I say they, I mean the Warrens. They liked the aesthetic of some of these items and they just put it in the collection. But now I do believe they're all haunted because they share the same space and energy. I know there are people that despise Ed and Lorraine Warren because they accuse them of being frauds and money hungry, greedy, whatever. And especially with Ed and his own allegations with getting into an affair with a minor while being married to Lorraine Warren. I'm not condoning any of that whatsoever. But here's the thing. They had a huge impact on the paranormal and spiritual community and the demonology community. And I will say this. Do I think Lorraine Warren was a medium? Yes. But like many mediums, their interpretations are widely influenced by their knowledge of the paranormal and experiences, of course, and cultural and religious background. And they were very into Catholicism, so a lot of their interpretations leaned in that direction, which is why everything was either demonic or human. I think Lorraine Warren didn't fully understand the variety of spirits and entities out there. And again, her upbringing in Catholicism kind of made it very narrow in the things that she believed in. So a lot of the conclusions in the cases that they had, yeah, I don't think they're 100% accurate. With that being said, the cases that they've ruled as demonic, I don't even think half of those were truly hauntings of demons. But regardless, we still learned a lot, especially in the demonology field, and certain patterns that they did point out, which are very important when determining the type of haunting. And while not every single haunting was demonic, like they said they were, I do feel like there's still a few, very little, but there's still a few that were. And how does that translate into the objects? Well, some of them are still haunted by demonic entities, but far less than what they say. So when it comes to haunted objects, typically dealing with a few, even just one or two, I rhymed, can be tricky enough. And in this museum, there's a crap ton. There's over 700 of them. And I feel like instead of trying to cleanse each individual object, which honestly is very unrealistic, because, yeah, that's a lot. Plus, how much do you really want to cleanse when you're opening the space to investigators? So, with that being said, you got to treat that extension of the home as its own space. And make sure that it is metaphysically separated from the rest of the home. If you're trying to be super duper duper cautious and safe. But then again, they're opening this up to investigators, so maybe they don't want to do that. But it is something to consider if you're trying to be super duper extra cautious. Here's the thing. If Matt or Elton or anyone else on their teams, if they're going to spend a lot of time there where they're sleeping over for weeks or days, whatever, they need to have a space where they can decompress, cleanse themselves, and just have an overall safe area where they can rest. And that would mean they would need to create some metaphysical boundaries between the occult museum portion of the home. And yeah, this is very important. But I know they're going to have it where people are going to stay overnight. And for safety reasons, I think it would be a good idea to have at least one area of that house where it's safe for people to rest. Because if you don't and you have people sleeping over, well, whether you're psychic or not, when people sleep, they're more vulnerable to psychic attacks and astral attacks and things like that. Even if you're just energy sensitive, the most common way for people to become attacked is during their sleep. So I feel like it would be in everyone's best interest to make sure that the sleeping area is cleansed well enough to where people don't have to worry about getting attacked. But also an area for people to take a break and collect themselves, especially if they investigate the museum portion of the spot and they get attacked. They're going to need to go somewhere to, straighten themselves out. But that's just me. One important thing I do want to talk about is the astral realm experience I had with Ed and Lorraine Warren at their house. Now, this wasn't prompted by me trying to manifest meeting them or set intentions where I wanted to meet them and astral project into their house and be nosy and whatnot. No, this was just one of those nights where I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I like to watch reruns because it helps me go to sleep, and the whole intention was to go to sleep early and not stay up. And well, then that's when the astral projection thing happened, and boom, there I am. I'm in the kitchen of the Warren house, and I'm talking to primarily Lorraine. Ed was there in the background. He didn't say much though. But I was talking to Lorraine, and I was there with a bunch of investigators that I've never met before. But they all felt familiar. And so we're sitting in the kitchen and we're talking. And I'm like, hey, I'm getting weird vibes here. What is going on? So Lorraine Warren warns me about the woods around the house first. She's like, hey, something not so nice is around in the woods. And I was like, okay, bet. And then she goes, also, there's something really nasty in this house, which doesn't surprise me because, hello, we have a museum here with over 700 occult items and things that have attachments and residual energy and stuff along those lines. So I'm like, okay, yeah, well, common sense, duh. But that's when she also said that the house in the museum is a huge magnet to negative energies and entities and spirits. When you have even just one item that is haunted by something negative, doesn't matter if it's demonic or human or thought form, whatever, that energy draws similar energy to it. And now you have a house with over 700 items that has a bunch of negative energies mixing. Yeah, it's pulling in some negative energy from the vicinity, and the woods is by the house. And again, it's being attracted from that museum. So she wanted me to warn you guys about that, but I'm sure you already know. Another thing I heard clairaudiently was, energy sensitive people, beware. If you are not someone that has experience in protecting yourself or having any type of barriers for yourself and blocking things out, I would practice a bit more before coming to this location. Period. And I also heard, of course, which again is common sense too, but investigators need to watch out and properly protect themselves before investigating, and to pay specific attention to different smells. Because while I was experiencing all this stuff, I started smelling garbage and rotting flesh. It was disgusting. So I just find that very interesting. Now, a lot of people associate the rotten smells, the garbage, the death to demonic entities. That is not always the case. Yes, things of that nature can absolutely produce smells like this. But I've learned through many different client cases that the smells are more associated with lower dimensional entities and spirits. So they don't have to be demonic in nature. As long as they are very low in vibration, that's something that can happen. So yeah, it's not always demons. It can just be something super duper negative, low in vibration. So yeah, that could be anything really. Then I did my little pre-channel, and immediately I did see a black void portal looking thing. It's in the museum. And again, it's a collection of a bunch of haunted things. And that energy can consolidate and create a warp in the energy grids, and or just mess with the energy grids and influence them in many different ways. But I did see a black voided portal for things to come in and out. And a lot of the haunted items, the entities and spirits attached to them, use that portal. And fun fact, if you want to call it that, and I've learned this when we did our interview with Dead Serious Investigations, and this is from an astral realm experience I had myself while, talking to him and, all that fun stuff. But haunted items, the entities and spirits associated to them, they don't necessarily have to stay with the item they were originally attached to. They can literally play musical chairs with other items. And it helps confuse those investigating them because they don't want to be found out. Because if they're found out, then that's a risk for them to go bye-bye. Now, obviously, they're not going to really cleanse each item in the Warren Museum. That's just unrealistic. But two, I'm pretty sure they don't want to do that because they're opening it up to investigators. They need something to investigate. Duh. But haunted items, they're very tricky because they can go around. They don't have to stay attached to the original item. And I noticed that too with the fire doll. That one's really haunted. Human spirit though. It's not demonic. But that one likes to hang around the Annabelle doll. Why? Because they're always together, whether it's in the room or on tour. They're typically, either stored together or on display together. And so that spirit likes to hang around the Annabelle doll. The Annabelle doll in of itself is its own can of worms. But yes, I did draw some crappy sketches of some of the most haunted items there. I don't remember what it's called, so please correct me in the comments or tell me in the comments what it is. It's that tallish black doll thing with the demon head. I don't know what it is. And then this looks like one of those gargoyle demon thingies perched. It looks like it's a carving. That one's haunted. I got an image of a cross, which there's quite a few in the house. But those are just a few. I'm not saying those are the only haunted things in that space, but those are like the strongest things I was feeling. But the black doll thing with the horns, what's weird is, and again, it could just because they rotate and they're not always with the item like 24/7. But the black doll with the horns, when I saw it in person at the Gettysburg Paracon, I wasn't picking much up. However, there were other things that kind of like overrid that, if that makes sense. So like the fire doll, for example, Annabelle. And there was something else. There was a witch doll too that were stronger, that kind of like got in the way. So with there being so many items, you're going to have certain items that are super stronger than others. And it will be hard to kind of like go around to investigate those because you're going to have a bunch of interference from the stronger things. And I think that's what happened when I was there in person with that one doll thing. And that's why I didn't pick anything up then, but during the channeling that I did to that one was coming up as something that was very like strong. As far as important details that Matt and Elton should know in terms of protecting themselves, I 100% would maintain cleansing routines, especially if you go inside that house, even if it's just the house, because remember, it's sharing the same space right now with the museum. But they need to maintain cleansing routines of themselves and of the space. So after they go to that place, they need to cleanse themselves before going back to their homes. And I feel like that's kind of a no-brainer, but oftentimes people forget, and I'm just as guilty. I forget often because I'm ADHD and my brain's everywhere all at the same time. So cleansing yourself, what does that look like? You can just use Palo Santo smoke. Though for them, since they are the guardians of this location, they need to be having some serious Reiki done on them often. I would probably say, depending on how often they're there at that location, every 3 months or so. If they're not there that often, they could probably get away with, I would say, every 6 months. But I think it's important to make sure that their chakras are cleansed, any attachments are removed. And speaking of attachments, if any of them, and I don't know them, okay? I don't know them on a personal level. I don't know their business. I don't know what their journey looks like in terms of shadow work. But if either of them or anybody going there has any mental health issues, and that can cover many of them, but addiction especially, I would make sure you are mentally straight before coming to this location, because things will try to attach to you, and having things in terms of mental health issues, that is a weakness negative things like to take advantage of. I see it time and time and time again. That is like the main way things enter into a person's life. So if you're not seeing a therapist or a counselor or whatever, start. There's nothing wrong with it. People need help. Some people are not super self-aware to be able to pick and prod and dissect themselves. So if you have any of those issues, please seek counseling, therapy, psychiatrist, whatever. Please. As long as you're working on yourself and improving yourself, you'll be okay. But if not, things, again, will take advantage of that. They'll make your conditions worse, especially if you're not properly protected. Those things can become significantly worse. All right, and once you're down so low in vibration and in your mental state, it can be very difficult to get you out of anything like any influence and or if it ever gets that far, possession. So that's why, yeah, work on yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I highly recommend not touching any of the haunted items unless absolutely necessary, which I can't even think of a scenario where it would be necessary unless it's like the house flooded and oh shit, you gotta like pick things up off the floor so they're not destroyed kind of dealio. Yeah, if possible, don't touch anything, please. And if you do, cleanse yourself ASAP. I know with the haunted Annabelle doll, they wear gloves. And then they even have the holy water, holy oil, and they do their prayer and all that stuff. There's a reason for that. Gotta take this super seriously, even if you're not a full believer and you're a skeptic or whatnot. Whether you're an investigator that's a skeptic, dude, you fuck around, you're gonna find out, and it's not a game you want to play. Nope. Have routine checkups. Again, mental health, but also physicals. Make sure you're seeing a doctor routinely. People usually can get away with having a yearly checkup. Now, if you're broke like I am, you probably only go to the doctor when you have problems that need fixed. I go to the doctor enough to know that I'm good. Like, I don't have to worry about that. But for the average healthy person, make sure you are getting seen at least once a year, please. Because negative energy, if you are around it long enough, it can affect your physical health. So yeah, make sure you're paying attention to all health avenues. Another important thing to know is know yourself. Know your thoughts, know your thought patterns. Know why you think certain things, why certain things like frustrate you, get you angry, make you upset. Need to know all your triggers. And this is important because, and again, people who are skeptics are going to roll their eyes, but you can have negative entities try to influence you and try to fuck with your head and get in your head. It can be very dangerous. That's why, I always say therapy is very important because they kind of shed light on that aspect of yourself. But it's important to know because sometimes, these things can communicate telepathically and sound like your own thoughts. And that's the scary part. It can feel like you're the one thinking it. Even if you have like a thinking voice. Some people don't have a thinking voice when they, think. And so they don't, catch it. But negative things are really good at mimicking your thinking voice and can get you into trouble. I've seen this with the case. This has happened to me really early on in my spiritual journey. During my haunting, I was picking up patterns that were like weird and not like me, and I was like, wait a minute, this is not how I think. That's fucked up. And yeah, so I got really good at understanding how I think, what my triggers are, why they're my triggers, and so on. So this will help you avoid any type of oppression or influence. So understand yourself very well. Important again, I'm going to say it again, and again. If you need help, whether it's for health-related reasons, or you think you have an attachment, or you're being haunted, ask for help. Don't be ashamed to do so. If you need help, you can contact me through my website, through Instagram, Facebook, whatever suits you. Another person is Chastity, aka the Luminary Luna Beams. We do the same work. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help. That is important. If you need tips on how to cleanse your space, I have a video you can watch on Lights at Midnight Podcast YouTube channel. We have a segment where we talk about it for, over 2 hours? You can listen to that for some tips and tricks. if you're, trying to start and you're just afraid to ask for help. One of the biggest things that people have to understand too is fear. Fear, let me tell you, if you're in a fear mindset or in a fear frequency, negative things know that they will take advantage of your worst nightmares. Work on your fear. And I noticed too, like early on in my journey, I was still in a fear mindset because I had just, dealt with a haunting that was fucked up. But I noticed I had more attacks while I was in that frequency. And the second I got out of that frequency and turned more into learning and educating myself and whatnot, the attacks got less and less and less. And also, fear is a gateway for things to enter. That kind of like leaves an opening, a crevice in your aura. Make sure you tend to that. Also, if you're afraid, personally, I would not go investigate this location until you work on that fear. Because, most likely you're gonna have a not so great experience. And lastly, if you're going to investigate this location and or Matt and or Elton, the night before you decide to go to this location, make sure you start preparing your protection situation. So whether that is envisioning your golden bubble of protection, or for me, I like to suit up in my gold armor and then put the bubble with it as a protective layer, and having those intentions of nothing being able to mess with you or affect you or attach to you or come home with you. Like, set all of those intentions beforehand. And then, of course, when you're there, wearing protective jewelry such as black tourmaline, onyx, obsidian, stuff like that. And then when you're done and you leave that place, make sure you cleanse that jewelry and yourself and any equipment you used and or brought to this location. Don't forget about the equipment, because that's one common thing that people do forget about, is cleansing their equipment and anything that was there at that location. If you're going to be using cards, if anyone's going to bring a pendulum, whatever, cleanse that when you're done. You don't want any of that energy coming back home with you or getting in the car with you. But other than that, that's all I got. So if you found this video informative and it helped you in any way, please let me know down below. But yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know down below, and or you can message me through Instagram, Facebook, and on my website. But yeah, guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all soon. Peace out.